Hello, I'm Vivek Atray, and I'll be reading from my book, Finding Success Within 52 Life Skills for Young Indians. So, I'm going to be reading 4 of these chapters from the 52 chapters in this book, and I hope you like this selection. And once I'm done with reading, I'm going to tell you to read the book as well, because these 4 are only representative of the 52 life skills that I talk about in the book. So, first, I'll be reading from chapter number 8, Communicating Effectively and Precisely. One of the most underrated factors that influences success is the ability or lack of it to communicate with precision and exactitude. Even more significant than the science of communication is its art. A natural communicator will garner a lot of goodwill and popularity, as well as career fillps in various ways. What immediately sets a professional apart from everyone else is the set of communication skills that he or she brings out when it matters. Good looks do not matter after their initial shock and awe value. The capability of speaking lucidly and even charmingly is a true winner. I was once posted as Sub-Divisional Magistrate of Kalka, subdivision in the foothills of the Himalayas. A leading politician decided to make village visits to hear about the woes and aspirations of the general populace. At one of the villages where the said politician's cavalcade halted, with officers like me in tow, we found a tall, gangling member of the village panchayat speaking forcefully against the state government. He all but blasted the powers that be in a short but powerful speech, which left all present quite stunned. He was so sure of what he said and so voluble that he simply bowled the audience over and got them cheering. When the man spoke against the visiting politician, who sat right before him, perched on a specially provided charpoy, the cheers were especially loud. The political leader was soon quite on the back foot. He gently mouthed his remonstrations, not wanting to annoy the villagers, but denying all the allegations. But what came as an utter shock to me was the following suggestion that the said political figure whispered into my ear. I will request the government to appoint this man as a member of the Area Agriculture Marketing Committee. This should win him over and bring him over to my fold. And sure enough, after a few weeks, the said denizen was allotted not only a position, but also an official vehicle by the state. And primarily because he spoke up to be noticed when it really mattered. Each one of us does not have to indulge in similar opportunism to rise in life. But it is clear that we do have to speak up when it matters and speak well. Even more of an asset is the ability to be effective in communicating on a day-to-day basis. A leader needs to convey clear and precise messages to his team, orally and in writing. He or she needs to make sure that there is no lack of clarity on account of inefficient communication. Email writing is a tricky task too for many people. Even sending text messages becomes a challenge for some. It is imperative to ensure that basic writing skills are a part of your repertoire. Repertoire means the assets that you have, the kind of pluses that you have. Add to that the ability to send lucid and unambiguous messages. Even at a personal level, you need to ensure that you are not misunderstood by those who really matter. There is no point in keeping silent when it would be better to share what is on your mind. And there is equally no sense in blurting out something which might hurt your loved ones. What do you need to remember from this chapter? If you lack oral or written skills, you must work on them to improve steadily. The idea is not to have an extensive vocabulary, but the ability to communicate with clarity and precision. By being an effective communicator, even if that talent has to be acquired, a professional can scale several peaks and even win some hearts along the way. The habit of constantly communicating with those in your professional or personal circle will make you popular as well as successful. Don't hold back when you feel the slightest need to communicate, but be discerning about what to say, how, and when. So that was the tip on communicating effectively. And now the next one is linked to this, and you will like it as well. Presentation skills, very important in today's world. The slicker, the better. Chapter 9, from Finding Success Within. The need of the hour in today's era is to be able to efficiently put across ideas that you have come up with. The audience or the group to whom a PowerPoint presentation or PPT is being delivered will always appreciate a slick and smart presentation as opposed to a long, drawn, and boring one. To deliver a good presentation, you can follow the 4 C's: confidence, calmness, clarity, and conciseness. Too many slides and too much text on them is never a great idea. When you need to do what you need to do is to cover all the points without writing too much about them and without repeating them. To start with, giving an overview of your presentation is a good idea. This should be followed by a few slides for each topic with minimum necessary comments, which have to be incisive and impactful. A well-worded conclusion to end the presentation would be the icing on the cake. Using simple colors and fonts is a good idea. Pictures should not be overdone, though some visuals are usually required. Visuals. Videos, if any, should be brief and relevant. Many presenters use long videos and focus on entertaining their audience a great deal more than needed. Hyperlinks should be used if needed, but not too many. Making a PPT too elaborate by displaying large amounts of data is an avoidable practice, unless absolutely essential. Too many statistical tables are always a burden on the mind of the viewers. There are some people who go on and on with their PPTs. They bore the onlookers to death, and whatever they sought to achieve through the PPT goes out of the window. In private companies, this happens at times, but in government departments, this is especially a worry. Someone should know. So much so that a very enlightened chief secretary of a northern state actually declared that no PPT would be delivered for a period longer than 12 minutes. The resultant time saving can well be imagined, as well as the lessening of the ordeal to which officials were hitherto subjected. One must also realize the difference and similarity between an extempore speech and a PPT. The main difference is that in the case of a PPT, the audience spends more time reading and gazing at the screen, there is more detail, and there are pictures that explain a lot immediately. In an extempore speech, the speaker has the undivided attention of the viewers and can make more of an impact with his or her persona. Some people feel more comfortable with the PPT as they feel a little less nervous and lean or depend on the slides quite a lot. That's fine, but even they should be able to make an impact by the power of the spoken word. The way they stand, the manner in which they use voice intonation, and the skill with which they convince their audience of the idea they have is what will matter. It is also possible and necessary to distribute handouts at times. These could contain printed copies of the PPT or a gist thereof. The trick is to ensure that the group does not keep reading the printed literature at the cost of paying attention to the presenter. By using witty one-liners, it is possible to keep the audience in a receptive and peppy mood. I hope you're doing so. The speaker must not plunge into drabness and dullness. Making cheerful comments at the beginning and the conclusion, as well as the use of intermittent humor, is a great way to make a presentation. What do you need to do then? The secret to being an able presenter is to follow the 4 C's: confidence, calmness, clarity, and conciseness. If you keep these 4 C's of presenting in mind, you will never go wrong. Practice your presentation before you actually deliver it. See how much time it takes and make sure it flows well. Do not make the presentation too long or too brief. Use handouts where necessary. Make sure your delivery is crisp and to the point, and your manner pleasing to your audience. So that was the presentation on the chapter on presentations. And now I'm going to talk about something entirely different, or slightly different at least. It is a workplace skill, a career skill, but it is to do with bosses. So this is chapter 17, handling difficult bosses. You had a difficult boss ever? Or you're going to have one later? So better know this. I'm reading from chapter 17, Handling Difficult Bosses, Finding Success Within is the book. One of the things about working for an organization is the necessity of working under someone else's command. Until you scale the ladder and become a CEO yourself, you will have to be answerable for all your actions at work to someone or the other. For that matter, even CEOs have the onerous task of handling a board of directors or chairman or an owner or someone else. Onerous means very difficult. There is no real independence when you are in a career mode, and there is no way that you can get away with annoying your bosses repeatedly. At times, hierarchical systems are so rigid that those senior in the organization will always consider themselves to be superior in every way to their juniors. Sounds familiar? Unless a boss or a senior is a really good human being and is inclined to play the role of a mentor, juniors will have to pander to his moods many a time. In some organizations, this fact becomes even more inescapable. The chain of command is so inflexible and the pressures at work so heavy that the boss can virtually make or mar the life of and career of a junior. There are, of course, checks and balances which prevent misuse of authority and power. But these may not be effective unless the system is really well structured. So how do you maintain your calmness and equilibrium if your boss gets difficult and almost impossible in his behavior? Supposing he badgers you continuously for months on end and makes your life hell by continuously being rude and tormenting you endlessly. What do you do, knowing fully well that you dare not complain? There is no point in losing your cool with such a person. Why harm your career prospects by getting into a slanging match? Stay calm and maintain your composure as far as possible. The only way out is to find the right opportunity to speak directly to your difficult boss. You have to request him or her to give you 20 minutes to explain how much pressure you are under and to explain how much better you would work if you were allowed to relax just a bit more mentally. Some bosses will see reason in this, others may not. But since you have made the effort to make your point, the boss will always be conscious of your pain points while dealing with you in the future. And even if he or she has to write your annual appraisal, which will boost or hamper your career growth, depending on how good or bad it is, you will be better off having voiced your opinion to him or her. Then if matters get out of hand and you are compelled to approach the senior management because your boss does not seem to see reason and is hell-bent on harming you, the management will take cognizance of this fact that you had already spoken to him. You will be able to point out this fact and say that you have already requested your immediate boss, but to no avail. I myself was regularly reprimanded, often unreasonably, by one boss I had. And one day he gave me a written warning which was totally uncalled for and which could have harmed my promotion prospects. I went to him with a copy of the warning and mentioned this to him. He took a long look at my face and heard me out, and he read the sheet of paper. Then he took it up and tore up the piece of paper. I regret my action, it was unfair. Now go back to work, he said. These were his words, and I left the room feeling a little dazed but very pleased. Often it is the communication gap between you and your boss that inhibits better relations. If you do not voice your grievances to your boss and instead keep sharing them with your colleagues, sooner or later the boss will get to know of your oral complaints against him and won't be very happy. It is always better to take the direct approach. But of course, be mindful that you do not become a crybaby by going to the boss too regularly. Overall, you will find that bosses are reasonable people whose main aim is to get the work out of you. But if someone is boorish, that means overly aggressive in his behavior or goes overboard, do not let that harassment continue. Take the initiative and voice your concerns. So what do you need to remember in this chapter? Some bosses are difficult people and act unreasonably at times. You have to be calm and not lose your cool with them. At the first opportunity, go and meet that boss and explain your difficulty to him or her. Request the boss to let you work in a tension-free environment. If that does not work, you must approach the senior management at the right moment and explain to them that you have already requested your boss to amend his behavior, but to no avail. I'll read one more chapter from the book Finding Success Within, and this is chapter 51. This is on mindfulness, which is very important these days. Mindfulness, living in the present moment. Mindfulness is much discussed these days. The need for it has never been as pressing as it is now. Focusing in the present moment, as opposed to letting the mind loiter around all the time, is highly beneficial to health, both mental and physical. Those who practice mindfulness are reaping the benefits of simply controlling the mind a little and not letting it wander hither and thither. That means here and there. There is everything to be gained by not letting the mind dive into the past or scurry into the future every now and then. A student in a classroom, a young professional in training, an executive in a top-level meeting, all these persons could be suffering from mind-wandering habits. Their efficacy at work or study then becomes negligible. They are neither able to concentrate on the present task, nor are they able to recall what was said later. At times, there are reasons for our mind wanderings. Something troublesome may have been bothering an individual. Or maybe he or she has fallen in love and can think of no one but the loved one. Even at such time, by analyzing your thought process at the end of each day, you can direct your mind to focus on the task at hand rather than being continually distracted. One way to do this is to focus on the present moment for 5 minutes at a time, by telling yourself that for the next 5 minutes, you will not allow your mind to wander. And then repeat this exercise for the next 5 minutes, and then the next 5 minutes. Otherwise, several months will pass before you are able to pay adequate attention to your present tasks. Gargi was a bright young management student who had all the makings of a highly successful professional and was likely to bag a top job at the firm. Her professors had told her that she will be very successful. But something happened in her life that totally affected her performance at college. Her mother fell ill and was bedridden. Her father had passed away a few years earlier. Gargi knew that their old maid was genuinely fond of their family and she would spend hours each day nursing her mother. Even so, Gargi kept worrying all day long about her mother and would call her every hour. Very natural to do so. So much so that her grades suffered though, and she was unable to make it to the selection rounds in the initial campus interviews. Gargi became depressed and her life's pathway looked hazy and uncertain. How could she have handled the situation in a better manner? She could have done so by increasing her faith in the genuine care that the maid was providing to her mother. The maid was a very good human being and should have been trusted implicitly by Gargi. But Gargi's mind kept wandering. Moreover, Gargi's mother was stable now. However, Gargi's worrying nature made her think of nothing else except the situation at home. Later, when Gargi realized that instead of worrying, she should have been concentrating on her career and getting a good job, she was able to unshackle herself from worries and distractions. And with a determined effort, she bagged the final position that was available in the campus interviews. However great the reason for a distracted and wandering mind, it is imperative that an individual buckles down and uses his willpower to shake off these wanderings. Mindfulness can be practiced at any time of the day for short durations, as earlier mentioned. And gradually the period of concentration can be enhanced and an individual can become much more successful by dedicating his whole energy to the task at hand. Meditation and mindfulness are linked, of course. Those who meditate morning and evening, even for 10 minutes at a time, can focus much more easily on their work throughout the day. Meditate. Analysis of your day-long thoughts and the trends at the end of the day is also a good habit. You can catch your mind as it begins to wander the next day by being determined to do so. Or else before you know it, you will be halfway across the world and daydreaming about acting in a Hollywood film. Mindfulness and its regular practice can enable a professional to increase his or her efficacy or efficiency at work and also improve relations at home. What you need to remember, mindfulness is the practice of preventing your mind from wandering and engaging it in the present moment. For 5 minutes at a time, you can direct your mind not to wander, and then repeat the exercise for the next 5 minutes and so on. By practicing meditation morning and evening, you will remain focused throughout the day. Daily analysis of your thoughts and the trends of your thoughts will help you to control your mind better the next day with a determined effort. Finding Success Within, this book of mine, is now available on Amazon and at bookstores. It is available through hard copy as well as through Kindle. There are 52 such chapters in this book. I have read 4 of them for you in this session, and I look forward to hearing your comments, reviews, feedback, not only on this video, but also once you've read the book. It will make a difference in your life, I can assure you. This is Vivek Atray, author and motivational speaker, signing off. Happy day. Thank you.